All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Excuse me. Thanks for being here. My name is Chris Reaney. I am an artist, and I am currently making a graphic novel. It's the pitch for a graphic novel, and I had this fantastic author reach out to me, gosh, a couple years ago, and it was actually not long before the pandemic started, and I guess that kind of threw everything. It just made life a little crazy and threw it all off. So, what can you do? So yeah, so this guy reached out to me. He's like, I wrote a novel, and it doesn't really work per se, like as a novel. And there's a lot of fighting in it. It's a deals with the history of America in the late 19th century, and I'm a huge Deadwood fan, so this was just like, oh my God, amazing, amazing, just to have this opportunity. And it takes place. There's a lot of bare knuckle and regular boxing. Marquise of Queensberry rules, gloves and ungloved. And if you have followed my work for any of the past decade or more, you know that I am Mr. MMA. So this is all really cool. Deadwood, MMA, two of my favorite subjects or pieces of culture. So that's what I'm working on right now. I did about 175 thumbnail sketches, and they were just sitting in this little sketchbook, kind of collecting dust. The author and I have not really been able to find a rhythm or anything. And I had this moment where I realized, oh, I can. I've been learning to use this laser in this workshop in my neighborhood. Pardon me. And I had this idea that what if I turn every page of this graphic novel into a wood engraving? And I will tell you the reason, or at least the inspiration behind that. When I was learning about, really, like deeply learning a couple years ago about what makes comics special, what are the things that the machinations, the decision making, and the what makes things really special. I discovered this comic called Black Sad, and it continues to be probably my favorite thing that I've ever read and looked at. That's a key thing too. It is stunning both visually and thematically. It's all anthropomorphic animals. They're pretty much human bodies, but with, sorry about that, human bodies, but what do we want to say? Animal heads and certain animal characteristics. There's a lot of things where the size difference in people is definitely related to their animal-based physiology. So that's cool. Anyway, every single panel in Black Sad is a watercolor painting, and I just can't believe how beautiful it is. I can't believe how lush and and just like a visual delight. Like I would look at this no matter what, even if the story wasn't great. But the story is fantastic. It's a classic, fairly classic noir style detective. Black Sad is a Black Panther who's a private eye, private investigator, whatnot. And he goes, the first story he ends up on a very classic whodunit murder, and then he goes through a number of other stories, and they're all fascinating. They take place in a kind of a early post-war America, kind of the dawn of the nuclear age. A lot of people have obviously, like, there's the remnants and the of World War II kind of are playing out. There's some like Jack Kerouac type on the road scenarios. It really draws from a mid-century American history and storytelling era. Really fun stuff. So, at its core, though, the storytelling is, that's up to the author. The choice in how to visually represent it, that's mine. And I've made, a handful of suggestions. I'm really happy that he liked some of them. And then this kind of wood engraving idea really is the first time I feel like, oh, I have latched on to this like thing that made me love Black Sad, like where every piece is special in its way. Oh man, shit. The plumber is texting me. I need to text this guy. Gosh. All right, let's talk. Let's talk a little more. And if I need to, I will, cut the stream, talk to the plumber, and then get back on again. So yeah. So I'm turning what I've been doing is redrawing the thumbnails with very little variation. I'm just taking them as they come. I'm redrawing my sketches from a traditional pen and ink format onto Procreate, turning them into these simple line drawings, and then dumping that into Inkscape. And then Inkscape does this thing called centerline trace. So I have to draw these thumbnails, or whatever I do digitally. I have to do it in a really interesting way if you are familiar with drawing as an artistic venture. One of the best things about drawing is like the dynamism, like line weight, stuff that's scratchy, stuff that's slow, stuff that looks thin, stuff that's really bold on a very simple analysis point of view. Even if you're not particularly artistic yourself, you could look at any cartoon type drawing and take a look at how like the outlines of things tend to be thicker than the interior lines. It helps you visually digest everything and read. It makes everything more readable. I can't do that with this laser and these programs that I have available to me. So instead, I have to think in a shape-based way and think about what it's going to look like after I paint it. So as you can see here, I think very much in terms of what's called negative space. The negative space is everything in this panel here that's black. That is the negative space. Everything else is this man, digging through his suitcase, the kid looking alongside him, the bed down there. This is the negative space. I mean, this is the subject matter. There we go. All right, so now you know what I'm doing. You are seeing everything. That's cool. I appreciate it. I'll appreciate you being here. What is this topic that we have chosen today? It was, the request was made by I dare say, friend and artist, Marco Bucci. I'm so grateful that somebody wrote in, a question as a topic. I know my favorite format for streams and podcasts, aside from stellar, amazing storytelling or investigative journalism, is live chat, Q&A stuff. On the MMA scene, I love the Luke Thomas live chat and the co-main event Wednesday live chat on their Patreon, which I patronize. So I've always wanted to do my own. That's a secret that you now know. So here we are. So it's easy for me to just ramble when I'm in the studio, and doing it this way with just one question and kind of building on it. Here we are. So Marco Bucci wrote to me and said, I'm paraphrasing because I didn't reread it. He said something like, I miss, like arm bars from the guard. Oh, this is an MMA question. Arm bars from the guard and like a nice triangle submission. What are some parts? What are some elements of MMA days gone by that you miss? Are not around anymore. And I thought about it, and I thought, as much as I'm not much of a technique guy, but I'll talk a little bit about that. And then it just got me thinking about MMA in general and my own relationship to it because, I've went probably the fullest cycle. There's this saying that, in MMA, it's got to be fans have to generally have a 5-year lifespan, but I realize it's about 15 years for me that I've been a fan. And I went from, it was a curiosity to it was a passion thing, like I loved it. I watched it a lot. I read, as much as I could about it. I learned. I watched the history of the sport rather than just jumping in on the whatever was happening at the moment. And then eventually I started working in the industry. And with the death of Bloody Elbow, put this down. With the death of the end of, oh man, these lights are really bright. Let me move these. There you go, that's better. With the death of Bloody Elbow, and put that in conjunction with the homogenization of both the industry and the sport itself, I thought it would be a good time to talk about my experience and everything that I'm going through. I don't think I will be staying in MMA media. I think my time is done for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't feel like there's not a website or a platform that really wants what I do. And I don't want to, start a cottage industry. I admire people who have done it. And in a weird way, I feel like, the Co-Main Event podcast, Luke Thomas, Jack Slack, like the Vivisection guys, Heavy Hands, 6th Round. I like consuming their content. I like supporting them. I like hearing what they have to say. I enjoy it. I like making artwork about MMA, but I'm not sure that I want to sit down and talk about it anymore. I have my own grievances with the way the sport is run, and I don't really feel like griping about it is a healthy way to engage with it anymore. Getting on my righteous, soapbox, it felt really good for a long time, made me feel smart. But it also, definitely alienated me from the powers that be and limited my ability to, work with certain people. And, I actually, when I was promoting my first MMA book, The Fine Art of Violence, Volume 1, a very, the editor at one of the biggest MMA sites was like, oh man, I love you, I love your work, and would love to do something about you, but, because of the site you're associated with and the work you do, you can't do it. And I was like, all right, that's fine, and I hustled and I put myself out there a lot. I approached a lot of podcasts. I got a couple really nice interviews. My book sold well. I self-published it and I shipped it and myself and packaged it and everything. It was great. But the fact is, MMA is such a grind that the websites and the podcasts that I reached out to interview me, they would disappear as the years went by. And it's like, oh my God, I got to meet new people and form new relationships. And it's kind of like, oh God, like I had this thought that I was going to stick around forever. But to watch everyone that you admire disappear and see people who, and the newer people come in, like, I find that people on the analysis side tend to be pretty cool, or at least like have a very pure kind of reason for being in the sport or working in it. But to move on, I don't want to call out people individually, but the newer players on the scene, like, they work hand in hand with the UFC, and I don't know, I feel like more and more people are going to be like that MMA editor who are like, love you, love your work, can't do anything with you because of the angle that you come from. Even though The Fine Art of Violence is primarily a celebratory book, it's like you can only celebrate. You can't criticize, you can't critique, or maybe I just do so in too heavy-handed a way. Anyway, it just is what it is. So I feel like my time has come. Oh, and I'll say one other, this is the second reason why I don't think I can stay in MMA, is that I moved to Denmark and I don't have like all my friends and family nearby anymore. And I've never, met many of the people that I've worked with over the years. I primarily, know them online, which has been kind of fine. I'm a very heavily online person. And then with this moment where I'm like, oh, I've met 2 coworkers in 12 years. Now, I've met a number of people in the MMA industry. I've gone out to dinner with them, get a cup of coffee, have a conversation on stream or on video. But like my actual coworkers, 2 people in 12 years. And that got me thinking that maybe this is a moment in my life to change things. Maybe I don't like that. Maybe I don't want to live that way. And when you combine my family situation, where I'm, living in a different country and very much needing healthier relationships, I've been in Denmark for 2.5 years, and you still need to work very hard to like have friends and have a social life. Maybe I should work here. Maybe I should be working here more. So that is what I've been working on. I'm making some artwork and developing some classes to teach, and really just making a new future for myself. And I don't think MMA is like the way to do that. I do think I'm going to go back to training. There's a school not far from here, and I've actually hung out with the owner once. We went to some Muay Thai fights together, as socializing with a couple guys. And I think I'm going to go train, and I'll probably be able to meet people that way, and that's a nice way to stay connected to the sport. And none of this is answering Marco Bucci's question. So I'll tell you what I liked. What do I miss? I miss the sense of anticipation and the kind of thrill of like long narratives. In the early days of my MMA fandom, everything was on forums, even Reddit r MMA. I remember it had about, 5,000 people on it. It was moderated by a guy named, a user named John Hyperion. And, it was pretty low user base, low count user base. And if felt like, all right, cool. So I was on a couple different forums, probably the Underground and MMA Linker are the two that I remember being on the most. I got my first job, and I love that they would make these threads about upcoming fights. And these fights would be weeks out, like they announce, title fight. And, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I like this black. I think I might do everything in sepia tones. I think the black washes out the cross hatching. That's no good. That's like one of the nicest parts of this this woodwork, or the laser work, I should say. So they would put up these threads like, war Overeem, war Fedor, war Nick Diaz, and you could go through a thread and people would talk shit to each other and whatnot, internet style, but they would also like talk about the fight itself, talk about the strategies, the pros and cons of people's styles, and just generally think about be excited for the future of a fight that was coming up. And I really liked that because it, for me, was a great way to become a fan, to hear people talk about fighters, their in depth. And the reason they were able to speak in depth is because there just wasn't as much fighting going on. And I know that like there is this trope of like, well, I'd rather have what we have now because there's a lot of fights. And I just I am not that way. I do not need 12 UFC fights every single week, or what feels like every single week, if I don't give a shit about the people that are fighting, if I don't even know who they are, and especially more than anything, if they suck. And a lot of people suck. A lot of people are there, they are regional level talent. That's something that really gets under my skin. I remember, this is now going back like, I don't know, 7 years or something, back when the UFC was really deeply invested in the Sage and Paige show. If you don't know this, the UFC, circa, I don't know, 2018 or so, 2017, they had these two, Ken and Barbie looking fighters, Sage Northcutt, who I believe was like 19 when he got into the UFC, and Paige Van Zant, who I know was below the legal drinking age when she got signed to the promotion, because they wanted to put her in, and they couldn't put her in the tough house because she wasn't legally able to drink. Let me just turn off this dryer. Okay. And back then, my wife used to watch MMA with me, which was really nice. That was cool. She got invested. She's like a classic casual, got invested in the stories of who these people were. I met her, and she started having to watch with me right around the time that George St. Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks, Anderson Silva fought Chris Weidman the first time. The first time. And then when Mark Hunt fought Bigfoot Silva, a.k.a. the greatest heavyweight fight of all time. Unless you count Crow Cop versus Fedor. It's really, that's a matter of your personal taste. Anyway, so that's the era that she came in, and she watched that show, that event where Sage Northcutt and Paige Van Zant fought each other. Let me think. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Paige Van Zant lost to Michelle Watterson, and Sage Northcutt fought Mickey Gall, and I think Mickey Gall beat Sage Northcutt. So we watched the fights, and we're going to bed, and she turns to me and she goes, "Why do I feel so unfulfilled by that?" And I said to her, "It's because you were watching low-level stuff." My wife was able to watch MMA because it was similar to the way people find like the Olympics enjoyable. It's not necessarily that they like that event, it's that they like watching the people who are the best in the world be the best, do something amazing. And to watch mid-level stuff that you're not actually interested in anyway, inherently, that is deeply unsatisfying. And that's what she experienced watching Sage Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt, headline an event. And now that's what I'm experiencing watching lots and lots of UFC events. This thing where you're like, I don't know, I'm not watching the best. I don't need to just watch a fight because, I don't know, I've seen enough. It's not that satisfying. And I mean, I'll watch Diego Lopez, I'll watch his stuff where he analyzes street fights. Like that's more fun than a lot of the chum that they're spitting out. So I'm missing this kind of long form storytelling where there's a fight and we care about the fight and we have the time and the space to marinate on the stakes, the narrative at play, and the stylistic and technical attributes of the people who are going to fight. Thanks for your time. My name is Chris Rini. Like and subscribe to this channel. I'll be back a lot more. I'm going to make this comic book and you guys are going to see it. Take care, everyone. Oh, wait. Hey, Esteban, how are you? Yeah, it is not as fun. That's the truth. There's no two ways about it. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if you got any questions. And I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to sound like I am not fun or something, but man, it's not fun. It's not fun to watch people who I don't care about not be great. Like, I got better things to do with my life. I don't know what kisses you're talking about. Let's see, what are we doing here? I'm going to move this panel over and then we can do a little bit of some other scenery. Oh no, maybe I'll do this last one here. Yeah, right? If you've been watching since the 90s, God, what a heartbreaker it must be to get as much MMA. Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, yeah. If you've been watching that long, you know the deal. All right, listen, I will be back. I don't know. See if I could be. What's today? Wednesday. I'll see if I can come back tomorrow or Friday, and try and crank out 1 or 2 streams a week. I have 7 or 8 pages of this comic book burned into wood, so I have a lot of work that I can be doing. So, all right, hit me up with any questions you got at Rini MMA if you are on Twitter. That's a great place to submit questions, or chris.rini@gmail.com if you'd like to suggest a topic for a stream talk. Thank you for your time. I'll be back. This is Chris.